It was supposed to be the biggest day of his life. CEO Daniel Wright stood at the top floor of his glass tower, watching the city stretch out like a chessboard beneath him. After months of sleepless nights, countless meetings, and endless negotiations, today was the day his company would sign a $200 million deal that would secure its future. Investors were flying in from Tokyo. The media was already buzzing, but none of them knew that a simple janitor working the night shift left a single note on Daniel's polished mahogany desk, a note that would shake his entire world. It started just like any other night for Marcus Reed, a single dad working 2 jobs to support his 8-year-old daughter, Emma. Marcus scrubbed floors and emptied trash cans at Wright Industries, keeping his head down and his dreams buried under exhaustion. He used to be an English teacher before life threw him curveballs, his wife's sudden death, mounting bills, and a system that didn't care. So now he mopped the hallways of the very kind of corporate empire that laid people like him off, without blinking. But Marcus wasn't bitter. He taught Emma every night about kindness, hope, and doing what's right, even when no one notices. And on that cold Thursday night, while emptying the trash in the CEO's office, Marcus noticed something most wouldn't have. The contract for the $200 million deal was left wide open on the desk. Marcus wasn't a businessman, but he was still a man who read, and what he read on those pages chilled him to the bone. Hidden among the legal jargon was a clause that would result in hundreds of factory workers being laid off overseas, their jobs outsourced to cheaper, less ethical labor markets. Families would be ruined. Kids would go hungry. It was just a number on a balance sheet to people like Daniel Wright, but Marcus knew firsthand what losing a job felt like. He hesitated. Who was he to interfere? He was just a janitor. But then he thought of Emma and the world he wanted her to grow up in. He pulled out a piece of scrap paper from his pocket, scribbled down a message, and quietly slid it under the contract. Power means nothing if you can't use it to protect those who have none. Look beyond the numbers, mister. Then he finished, cleaning the room, clocked out, and went home to tuck Emma into bed. The next morning, Daniel stormed into his office, barely awake, but ready to finalize the deal. His assistant placed his espresso on the desk, and as he moved the contract aside, the note fluttered out onto his lap. Curious, he unfolded it, his brow furrowed. His heart beat a little faster. At first, Daniel laughed. Who dared leave him? Note like this? Who thought they could guilt-trip a man like him? But something about the handwriting rough, hurried, sincere cut through his armor. Against his better judgment, he postponed the signing and called in his legal team. He demanded a full audit of the deal. What they found stopped him cold. Not only was the clause Marcus spotted accurate, but the outsourcing was even worse than it appeared. It wasn't just layoffs. It was exploitation, child labor, unsafe conditions. All to shave off costs and inflate shareholder profits. Daniel sat alone in his office that night, staring out at the skyline. He had worked his whole life to reach the top, to be the man his father never was, successful, powerful, untouchable. But now he had to ask himself, was it all worth it if it came at the price of other people's suffering? He thought of his late wife, who always believed that doing good was never optional. He thought of his own son, who barely saw his father because of his obsession with work. And strangely, he thought of the stranger who left that note. The next morning, instead of signing the contract, Daniel walked into the boardroom and shocked everyone. He tore up the deal in front of the investors. Gasps filled the room. People whispered about his sanity. Stockholders panicked. His closest advisors warned him this would cost the company millions. But Daniel didn't care. He stood up and said, if we build our success on the backs of those who can't defend themselves, then we don't deserve success at all. News spread like wildfire. Some praised his integrity. Others called him reckless. But for the first time in years, Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. But the story didn't end there. Curious about who left the note, Daniel ordered a quiet investigation. Security footage revealed it wasn't a high-ranking exec or some undercover journalist. It was Marcus Reed, the night janitor. Daniel requested to meet him personally. When Marcus was called up to the top floor, he feared the worst. Was he about to be fired for touching the CEO's documents? But when he stepped into the room, Daniel stood, extended his hand, and said, "Thank you." Confused but cautious, Marcus shook his hand. Daniel asked him about his life, his struggles, and his daughter. For the first time, Marcus's story was heard by someone with the power to change it. And Daniel, realizing how many people like Marcus were invisible in his world, made a bold decision. He offered Marcus a full scholarship to complete his master's in education, something Marcus had given up on long ago. He also launched the Read Initiative, a company-wide program aimed at supporting employees' families, providing educational scholarships, and protecting workers' rights across their global operations. It didn't stop there. Daniel restructured future deals to put people first, even if it meant slimmer profits in the short term. Slowly but surely, Wright Industries became known not just for its technology, but for its heart. Marcus, now back to teaching, still cleaned the occasional hallway at his daughter's school on weekends, not because he had to, but because he believed in the dignity of every job. Emma grew up knowing her dad was a hero, not because he wore a cape, but because he spoke up when it mattered. Most, in Daniel. He didn't lose everything, as his board feared. In fact, within a year, Wright Industries attracted partnerships with companies that shared his new values. The profits returned, trust was restored, and the legacy he once thought would be built on steel and glass was now built on something far stronger: integrity. In the end, it wasn't the $200 million deal that defined their lives. It was a simple, handwritten note from a janitor who refused to stay silent. The lesson? No matter how small you feel, your voice matters. No matter how powerful you become, your choices define who you are. Call to action: if this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories that remind us that kindness, courage, and integrity can change the world one choice at a time.